Anne Widdecombe. Hi, Anne.
Hello. Hi. Good to be back.
Yeah, good to have you on board. Now, I don't want to dwell too much in what's been going on in Parliament for the last couple of days because we've just covered that extensively. But I must get your comment or your thoughts on what we saw today. The Chancellor in floods of tears behind the Prime Minister. It was a very uncomfortable sight, and of course a lot of people speculating, and that's because she has had the 24 hours from hell. Yesterday the government's authority was shot. They went from trying to save £5 billion on our grotesque £300 billion a year benefits bill to actually capitulating so much to their left-wing rebel backbenchers that they ended up adding 100 million to our benefits bill. Now, the Chancellor has clearly been massively undermined by this. I'm told the word in Westminster was that the final capitulation last night she was not even told of. And that she's extremely upset today. You can see that she's lost control of the economy. The markets are tanking, the pound's tanking, the bond market, the stock market. Your thoughts on seeing the Chancellor cry? We're told they're saying it's a private issue, but you have to speculate that perhaps she's a bit upset about the way things are going.
Well, if it is a private issue, that of course simply comes on top of, months actually of hell for the Chancellor. I mean, she hasn't had a moment's let up since she took office. She's had the validity of her CV queried. She's announced policies which the Prime Minister has then repudiated. This whole big flagship bill has turned into a farce of significant proportions, and as you say, we've heard about it to saturation point. And I imagine that the pressure, just all of it building up, particularly if there is something personal coming on top of it, just became too much for her.
Yeah, as I keep saying, and I'm a bloke, I can't stand to see a woman cry, but a remarkable sight in the House of Commons. Not a happy one. Very unusual indeed. Yeah. I can't imagine you doing it in your heyday, but right.
I'm pleased to say I didn't, but then I maybe didn't have the strains that she's been under. I mean, I would be very, very careful before condemning somebody for just finally giving way in the comments.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't criticise her if she's upset for either professional or private reasons. But what I want to get you on, Anne, if you don't mind, is the ongoing scandal, if you like, engulfing the BBC director Tim Davie. He is, we're told now, literally fighting for his job after the debacle of Glastonbury. Now, this band, Bob Vylan, we know what they shouted, death, death to the IDF, arguably a call to racial violence, racial hatred. They are being investigated by the Somerset and Avon police. But the point for the BBC is this: they cover Glastonbury obsessively, 24/7, hundreds and hundreds of hours, every second lovingly broadcast to an unsuspecting public. But Tim Davie, the Director General, on Sunday it was, he was there, he was on the site. Now, what the BBC clearly should have done, and they've admitted this, is the moment that Bob Vylan shouted death, death to the IDF, they should have just taken him off air. Instead, they left him on live for 40 minutes. I say him, it's actually a band, it's a duo, left them on for 40 minutes. And they did take it down from the iPlayer. Apparently, Tim Davie was consulted on site and sort of approved of this option, which was to let the band play for 40 minutes but don't put them onto the iPlayer so that people could watch them whenever they wanted. Either way, mistakes were made. BBC are saying that they regret this decision. They should have taken them off air. Tim Davie's in it up to here. And after his shambolic handling of the sagas involving Gary Lineker and Hugh Edwards, I mean, this guy is turning into the Beebs bungler-in-chief. Do you think this time he may have to go?
I think it's possible. First of all, what we heard was without doubt antisemitism. Now, there is a very thin and fuzzy line. between criticising the Israeli government and allegations of anti-Semitism. There is no line at all once they start calling for the death of Israeli soldiers. So that was a straightforward incitement to violence, which is a criminal offence anyway. And I do not really understand. I mean, I can understand if it went on for a few minutes, you know, it's live, everybody's taken by surprise, not quite sure what to do. I do not understand how it could have gone on so long. I think it was a grave error of judgment. Now, we've heard various explanations over the last 24 hours that there was somebody else back at the BBC while Tim Davie was at Glastonbury and that person should have pulled it, etc., etc. But it seems to me that whichever way you look at it, you know, Tim is now in a very, very vulnerable position, and rightly so.
Yeah, and you have to remember that he is actually the editorial personification of the BBC. Every editorial organisation, be it a TV channel, a newspaper, a radio station, there is an editor who, if necessary, has to take the rap. And whether or not he personally made this decision and whether or not Tim Davie was at Glastonbury, in the end, may not be all that relevant. It is the fact that he's the head of an organisation, the legal head of an organisation, that has made a terrible, terrible error here. They admit it. They admit they've made a mistake. So he may have to take the fall here, I think.
Well, he may. I mean, we're going to have to see what eventuates. But the great irony is, of course, that Tim Davie came in with an agenda, and a proposed agenda of restoring impartiality to the BBC. And there certainly hasn't been any sign of that ever since he took office.
Yeah. Well, this is what worries me about what happened on Sunday. Now, had Bob Vylan or some other band leapt onto the stage and shouted, "Death, death to the Muslim church," you know, they'd have probably been under arrest within about 3 seconds. The BBC would have shut down all coverage right there and then. But because Bob Vylan's fury was levelled at Jewish people, at Israel, you suspect that there's a lot of people at the BBC who kind of sympathise with that outlook. This is the problem with the BBC. I can't believe how far the BBC newsroom has fallen since October the 7th. Their coverage of the conflict in Gaza has, I don't think it's up for debate. It's a fact. It's been vehemently anti-Israel and pro-Hamas, really, but certainly pro-Palestine. And this is what worries me about what happened at Glastonbury, that it's a reflection of the prevailing attitude at Broadcasting House. We don't like Israel, we like Palestine. Therefore, the BBC was pretty lackadaisical when it came to taking action about Bob Vylan.
I think you're absolutely right in your analysis. I think the BBC is institutionally left-wing, and people who've worked for it have said that. I think it's institutionally pro-Palestine, and it does find it very difficult to act in a way that flows contrary to that. But whichever way you look at it, calling death to anybody is an incitement to violence, even if you take away everything else. And the anti-Semitism was extremely clear. But even if you take away everything else, that is still a criminal offence, and the BBC should have cut the broadcast the instant that was said, or certainly the instant it was repeated.
Yeah, and what is it about the BBC? I mean, they don't seem to be able to see that charges of bias against them are at the very least valid. I would argue the charges of bias against them are absolutely correct, but they just can't see it about themselves. They sort of bask in the warm glow of their self-created halo. Oh no, we are totally unbiased. We are incredibly impartial, and they're just not about Israel. They are not impartial about the Gaza conflict.
They're certainly not impartial about the Gaza conflict. They regularly accuse Israel of genocide. They regularly put all the stress on what Israel is doing without pointing out what Hamas has been doing, and that this war is against Hamas and not against the people of the Palestinian areas. I mean, you have it right, but I don't know what more I can say on this, because until the day comes when you get a chairman who not only pays lip service to impartiality, but who actually starts training BBC journalists in what that means. I don't think half of them can tell the difference between reporting fact and making comment, and I don't think they can tell the difference between partial and impartial reporting. I just don't think they can. That is what needs to be addressed.
I totally agree with you, Anne. There's nothing more terrifying than a biased person who thinks they're unbiased, because that means they will continue down their extremely biased road. What did you think about Diane Abbott? Just want to get you briefly on this. She started talking today about the Jewish Defence Force as opposed to the Israeli Defence Force, which is what they actually are. Now, technically, as a matter of fact, the IDF are not all Jewish.
Exactly.
But to Diane, the Jewish Defence Force, this comes on the back. You remember her notorious letter to the Observer saying that racism against Jewish people wasn't as bad as racism against other people. I mean, is this woman anti-Semitic?
I think on the basis of her own pronouncements, one's got to say that she probably is. Now, she would deny it. She would absolutely deny it. But again, that may well be because, like so many BBC journalists, in this case it's an MP, she may just not realise the extent to which she really is biased against the Israelis, and I hate to say it, but against the Jewish people.
Yeah. I think she probably picked up all her ideas when she used to go out with Jeremy Corbyn. What a partnership that must have been. What did you make today, Anne, of the vote in Parliament to successfully proscribe Palestine Action, the group, the organisation that broke into Bryce Norton last week and caused £30 million worth of damage to 2 Air Voyager refuelling RAF planes? They've been proscribed now. They are now a forbidden organisation, a terrorist organisation, alongside the likes of Hezbollah and Hamas. Was that the right decision?
Yes, that was the right decision. I'm very relieved that Parliament took the right decision. And I think, if anything, it should have been done a bit quicker. And yes, they should be prescribed. And now that they are prescribed, it should be enforced, so that if people do support them overtly, or demonstrate in their favour, or carry out criminal damage on their behalf, if anybody at all supports them, they must then have the full weight of the law against them. Otherwise, it's pointless prescribing them.
Yeah, because if I go into the streets of London now waving a Hezbollah or a Hamas flag, going, yeah, go Hamas, go Hezbollah, that's actually technically against the law. I am supporting a forbidden, prescribed terrorist organisation. From now on, it will be the same for Palestine Action. So if any of these liberal, lefty Guardian reader types want to go to hit the streets shouting, "Save Palestine Action," they'll be breaking the law.
Absolutely.